Hey guys, Marill here, and welcome back to Let's Talk episode 11. Now, in this episode, I figured I would give my 2 cents on the Nintendo Switch Pro, and I don't mean that they've announced it or anything. I just mean, like, do I think they're developing it, and do I think it will be a thing? You know, everyone seems to have their speculations on, well, will there be a Nintendo Switch Pro? Won't there be a Nintendo Switch Pro? So I figured I might as well tune in and discuss my thoughts on whether Nintendo will actually put out a Nintendo Switch Pro. So, first part of the video I want to talk about is the engineering behind some of these handheld consoles, because I think that is the most important factor to discuss when discussing whether or not Nintendo would do a Nintendo Switch Pro. So, there are two main features that need to happen but there are two main variables that we need to deal with when developing a handheld console. Those are heat rejection and battery life, because the more processing power you have, the more heat you generate that you have to reject, and the more power that your battery has to intake to power those components. So what we've seen in recent years with the AO Neo and the Steam Deck is that, yes, you can put newer hardware in these smaller environments, but they're still going to be fairly clunky, and the battery life isn't going to be very good, even without the OLED display. So, I think that's part of why, in my opinion, Nintendo is not developing a Switch Pro. Because, realistically, other companies have proven that it's not worth it in terms of battery life and in terms of these things. Especially since the Switch already has, even just outputting 1080p 30 FPS, it still has a very limited battery life on these larger games. So, at the current moment in time, I don't believe that they are developing a Nintendo Switch Pro. I just do not believe it's worth their time and their effort. That's just my thoughts on it, just looking at it from an engineering perspective. Now, granted, do I think they will? And I think that the potential answer to that is yes. And why do I believe that? Well, there are various hardware developments being made right now in the industry that are potentially useful in the future, right? So if you can minimize the size of your components and make them generate less heat with the same processing, you could theoretically do it. And another thing I think is, I know this may sound weird, but I think Tesla could actually have an influence on this, because Tesla has been working on batteries for years now, and what they've been trying to do is optimize the charge life with the capacity. So they're trying to make this massive battery life with a really fast charge time. And I think whether it be Tesla or not, if a company can manage to have this really large battery that has a really large storage and a really fast charging time, and they can minimize that technology, then I think that would revolutionize the handheld industry. That's kind of a weird take, but that's kind of where I'm at thought-wise. The other thing I think is important to analyze is the Switch sales, right? So the Switch is one of the highest grossing consoles selling ever. Like, it has a shit ton of sales all across the board, all 4 models, right? And because they've sold so many, like, if you're making that many sales, why would you introduce a new console, right? The only time you really start to see these new consoles rise is when sales begin to drop on the old consoles, because newer hardware has come out and that newer hardware should be utilized. Of course, there hasn't been a huge handheld revolution in years. I mean, before the Switch, there was the Vita, and the Vita utilized the Switch utilized some of the Vita's design processes. Like, if you look at it, it's got a lot of similar things to the Nintendo Switch. It's got, the touchscreen, the joysticks, all the buttons. They're very similar in nature. The Switch is just kind of a larger version. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on, will Nintendo make a Nintendo Switch Pro? I doubt it. Just looking at it, that's my perspective on it. You're welcome to disagree. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below, whether or not you think that this is a good idea, bad idea, whether you think they'll work on it or not. You know, like I said, this is a very open conversation series where I like to listen in of other people's opinions and feedback on it. So yeah, this has been Let's Talk episode 11, talking about my thoughts on the Nintendo Switch Pro, and I will see you all next time.